The Hebrew Bible, Old Testament, records multiple covenants in which God promises land to Abraham and his descendants. For example, in Genesis, God tells Abraham, "To your offspring I will give this land." Later, he defines the borders of this promise. "On that day the Lord made a covenant with Abram. To your descendants I give this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates." In Genesis 17, God reiterates, "All the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession, will belong to Abraham's seed." These land covenants become a core part of Jewish and Christian theology. Key scriptural passages, Old Testament, include Genesis 12 verse 7. "To your offspring I will give this land." First promise of land to Abraham's seed. Genesis 15:18. "To your descendants I give this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates." Details of the land boundaries. Genesis 17:8. "I will give to you all the land of Canaan for an everlasting possession." God's covenant. Everlasting possession. Exodus 3:17. "God vows to bring you up out of Egypt to the land of the Canaanites, a land flowing with milk and honey." Restoring Israel to the promised land. Ezekiel 36:2-4-8. God prophesies, "I will take you from the nations and bring you into your own land. You shall dwell in the land that I gave to your fathers." Prophecy of regathering Israel. These passages form the biblical basis for seeing modern Israel's existence as tied to God's promises. In particular, Genesis 12 verses 2-3 also contains a key blessing/curse formula. "I will bless those who bless you, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you," which many interpret as encouraging support for Israel. All verse quotations above are from the Bible, Old Testament. Evangelical Christian beliefs on Israel. Many evangelical Christians, especially in the U.S., interpret the Old Testament promises as still in force today. A major strand of evangelical theology, often called Christian Zionism, holds that the return of Jews to the land of Israel is biblically ordained and prophetic. They believe that re-establishing Jewish sovereignty in the ancient homeland fulfills end-times prophecies and is a prerequisite to the second coming of Christ. As one authoritative summary notes, Christian Zionists assert that the founding of Israel in 1948 was in accordance with biblical prophecies, that the re-establishment of Jewish sovereignty in the Levant is a prerequisite for the second coming of Jesus Christ. In practice, many evangelicals take verses like Ezekiel 37, the Valley of Dry Bones, and Joel 2 literally, seeing the modern state of Israel as a prophetic fulfillment. A related belief is the blessing theology. Since God said, "I will bless those who bless you," Genesis 12 verse 3, Christians often believe they will receive spiritual blessings by supporting Israel. Over the past century, this has been interpreted individually: give money, pray, visit Israel, and nationally. For example, many evangelical preachers regularly cite the Abrahamic covenant to argue that America and other nations will prosper by allying with Israel. Another common evangelical view is dispensational prophecy, that Israel's existence triggers a sequence of end-time events: the tribulation, Armageddon, and Christ's return. As The Guardian summarizes, one strand of evangelical theology holds that the return of Jews to the region starts the clock ticking on a 7-year Armageddon, after which Jesus Christ will return. Influential pastors like John Hagee explicitly teach that when Jews are back in the land, the rapture and Antichrist events are near. In short, for these evangelicals, Israel is at the center of salvation history. Its survival and prosperity are seen as fulfilling God's promises and cosmic timetable. Historical fulfillment and modern state of Israel. Because of these beliefs, many evangelicals view the modern creation of Israel, 1948, as a miraculous fulfillment of prophecy. Theodore Herzl's Zionism and the Balfour Declaration, 1917, are often portrayed as being guided by divine providence. Websites and churches teach that the gathering of Israel predicted in the prophets occurred when Israel declared independence in 1948, and subsequent events, wars, survival despite persecution, were acts of God. For example, Christian Zionist commentators point to World War II and the Holocaust as causing global sympathy that enabled Israel's rebirth, in line with biblical themes of exile and return. Academic surveys confirm that a large majority of American evangelicals literally believe God gave the land to the Jewish people. One study found that about 82% of white evangelical Protestants say Israel's existence is due to direct divine intervention, or that Israel was given to the Jewish people by God, a rate on par with ultra-Orthodox Jews. This indicates how deeply this conviction runs among evangelicals. They tend to see Israel's survival as God's doing, not just secular history. Impact on geopolitics, evangelical influence. These religious beliefs strongly shape modern geopolitics and policies toward Israel. In the United States, evangelical Christians are a significant political force. Politicians often court their support by embracing pro-Israel stances. For example, moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, 2018, was championed by evangelical leaders, since it symbolically recognized Israel's claim to its holy city. In a 2017 survey, while only 31% of all Americans supported the embassy move and 63% opposed, a majority of white evangelical voters supported it. In other words, evangelicals were far more likely than the general public to back this pro-Israel policy. In the current Israel-Gaza conflict, polls show evangelicals overwhelmingly support Israel's actions. A 2024 Chicago Council survey found 64% of white evangelical Protestants said Israel is defending its interests and is justified in the Gaza war, compared to just 32% of the overall public. Similarly, 60% of evangelicals oppose any restriction on U.S. military aid to Israel, far higher than other groups. These attitudes have real effects. Influential evangelical organizations, like Christians United for Israel, with millions of members, lobby Congress, donate to pro-Israel candidates, and shape public debate. Evangelical leaders regularly meet Israeli officials and press for policies aligned with their theology, e.g. opposing Palestinian claims or supporting annexation. In short, because they believe the entire land of Israel belongs to the Jewish people by divine ordinance, evangelicals tend to view any concessions or criticism of Israel as irrelevant or even sacrilegious. This worldview underpins a strong, unconditional support for Israel in current geopolitics. U.S. foreign policy, e.g. close military alliance, vetoing UN resolutions against Israel, is in part driven by this block of evangelical opinion. The influence is evident in partisan politics too. Polls show nearly two-thirds of evangelicals back leaders who promise unwavering support for Israel. Summary: faith, promise, and policy. Evangelical Christian beliefs about Israel's survival combine ancient covenant theology with modern prophecy interpretation. In their view, the Old Testament's land promises to Abraham and the prophecies of national restoration are literally unfolding today. This has led many to see the state of Israel as divinely protected and central to the coming of Christ. Politically, these beliefs translate into energetic backing for Israel on the world stage, strong U.S. support for Israeli security, recognition of Jerusalem,